Taigi and welcome to In Taiwan We Speak, your audio guide to Taiwan's mind-blowing linguistic diversity. I am Alexander Shin, and this is the second and last part of our conversation with Lîm Sim-An, an app developer and the creator of Taro Taiwanese Dictionary. Hi, Sim-An, again.
Hello, everyone.
In the previous part, we talked about the app that you've created for promoting your ancestral and your native language, Taigi. You mentioned once that you grew up not speaking it fluently yourself. But I know now you're actively learning it, right?
Yeah.
What is your current level? I mean, if we have to think in terms of, let's say, the Common European Framework, A1 to C2, what would your level be?
Yeah. I'm actually not sure about it, but I actually just took the proficiency exam the other day. Yeah, we'll see the result, but I think it is at least B.
Upper B?
Hopefully upper B.
Cool.
We'll see.
Well, I think that's confident enough to sort of ask you to teach us some language today. First, I have to ask about some things, parts of the language, of course, which need asking, because I know there's no consensus about this in the Taigi speaking communities or Taigi promoting circles. Taigi was not allowed to standardize for the longest time, right? Because of what you mentioned in the previous episode, the Japanese administration and then the Chinese nationalists. And we ended up with this language not having a standard name, but also not having a standard writing system, which is a major impediment for promotion of language or education and publishing. We know that there are several systems for the language. There's a system based on Chinese characters. There's a system based on the mix of Chinese characters and Latin-based letters. And there are several systems based entirely on Latin script. And two of them you mentioned last time, Taigi and Taila, are available in your application.
Yeah.
Now, Taigi is a little bit older because it was developed by the missionaries. Taila was developed by Taiwan's government recently. They're slightly different, right?
Yes, slightly different, but once you master one, it is very easy to learn another.
Which one do you recommend your users choose? I know you have two available, but you probably have a preference, right?
Yeah, I try to be as neutral as possible, but if you ask me personally which one is my favorite, I would go with Taigi because of its historical significance. For example, the first ever newspaper in Taiwan was written in Taiwanese and specifically in Taigi. So that newspaper has a lot of breakthroughs in terms of the writing system of Taiwanese, and there's a lot of literary work on it as well. So it is quite an important piece of data that we can use to study nowadays. So if we can learn Taigi, then we can just directly understand what people from 100 years ago wrote. So I think it's very big advantage to learn Taigi. And another history about Taigi was in the 20s, Taiwan was under Japanese rule. And at that moment, the intellectuals in Taiwan were actually trying to do a cultural movement to enlighten the people of Taiwan. And one of the things they did was try to improve the literacy rate of Taiwanese people. And the tool they used was actually Taigi as well. So yeah, I think learning Taigi to me has... I just have a lot of soft spots for it because of this kind of history. Yeah.
And the historical significance of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Taila was developed more recently, right? So from my understanding, it's more adapted to modern day keyboards. Like using English keyboard, you can actually type out Taila, but Taigi has some of those very special letters.
Yeah, for example, the upper script N that stands for nasal sound. Maybe we'll talk about it later.
Oh, the upper script, you mean like the math symbol like N in the upper corner of a letter?
Yeah.
Right. I can't imagine even producing that on a common keyboard.
Yeah, but right now, modern days keyboard, like a lot of developers have worked on the Taiwanese keyboard. So it is actually fine to type in both systems. It's possible.
It makes sense, I guess, because the demand is definitely there.
Yeah.
And we won't have to wait too long to
Yeah.
have the systems available more easily to everyone. Now let's talk about the juice of the language. This is usually my favorite part. I like to talk about the anatomy of language.
Mm.
What are some of the interesting or unique features of Taigi that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, what I prepared today is the nasal vowels in Taiwanese. I earlier mentioned that in Beiwei there's an upper script N to stand for nasality, usually written after a vowel. Because Taiwanese vowels are quite special, we have two sets of vowels. One is oral vowels and the other are nasal vowels. So when we pronounce oral vowels, the air doesn't really go through your nose. But nasal vowels, on the other hand, air does flow out of your nose. So it's kind of like when you say the English word sing, S-I-N-G, sing, like sing a song. If you put your hand under your nose, you'll feel like there's a puff of air coming out when you say the word sing, because there's a nasal consonant at the end, ng. You just pronounce the vowel, but you try to let air flow out of your nose.
Okay, give us an example of, let's say, two similar syllables, one having a oral vowel, another one having this very special nasal vowel.
So for example, the vowel E, when I say E, there's no air coming out of my nose. But when I say the nasal one, it is E. Yeah, you did it. So it actually just sounds like you have a cold or something. Yeah. So it's not that hard if you try to do it.
But it's very important, right, that there's a distinction.
Yeah. Whether a word is oral or nasal will change its meaning. So I actually prepare a list of words like that. So maybe we can practice together.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Okay, so the first set of word is D and D.
Okay. D and D.
Yeah, you did it right.
I do need to imagine that I have a cold.
So D means pig, like the oral one, D, it means pig. And when you say D, the nasal one, it means sweet.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Those are two very different words.
Yeah, so with or without nasal sound, it does make a difference.
I'm wondering, people who actually do have a cold, how do they manage their way around oral vowels?
I don't really know, but it's an interesting topic. But I think it is still relative. Like the nasal vowel will sound definitely more nasally than the oral one, even if you have a cold.
True. And there's also context.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do another one.
Okay, so the next one is soaⁿ and soaⁿ.
Oh, this one is more difficult. The vowel is more complex, right? We have wa, swa, and swa.
Yeah, you did quite well.
It does require some effort to direct the air into my nose.
Yeah.
But I think in my real life, when I'm not trying hard to speak, because I'm not from, the podcast tribe, I do tend to nasalize a lot of my sounds a lot. Yeah, I've been told this many times. What is swa and swa?
So swa means sand and soaⁿ means mountain.
One thing I'm having a hard time imagining, though, is how you, in your speech, jump from, naturally from oral vowels to nasal vowels and then switch back and forth, because you have these characters sort of coming one after another, right?
Yeah.
Can you give us an example?
我無介意刷，唔講我介意刷.
The last swa was nasal, right?
Yeah.
And then when people naturally just talk on the street, will it be this clear, or is it going to be more challenging as it often happens?
I think because we're in this recording setting, so I think I'm trying to emphasize the nasal sound a lot more than it is supposed to be.
All right. Okay. So yeah, dear learners, brace for a challenge. And what are some of the other interesting and unique features that you think would be perhaps distinctive of Taigi when we think about Mandarin Chinese or English?
Compared to Mandarin, there's a lot of short sounds in Taiwanese called the intertones in English and Lîm Sim-An in Taiwanese. In the olden days, I think there used to be these kind of short sounds in old Chinese dialects, but because of, I think, language contact, Mandarin kind of lose that type of quality, that way to pronounce words. But Taiwanese still keep that way to pronounce words, like Cantonese as well. For example, when we say pen, bit, then there's that short sound. So it ends with the consonant T. So when I say bit, my tongue will place at the position where the T sound's supposed to be, like right after your teeth. So when I say bit, my tongue stopped right behind my teeth.
But you don't pronounce the T as...
No, you don't pronounce it.
So it's not pit.
No, it's not
It's
pit, although it spells as pit, but it's bit. And you don't pronounce the T.
Right. But why do you call it a tone if we're talking about sounds?
Okay. So actually only words with the fourth tone and the eighth tone have this kind of short quality. But I'm not the expert of it, so I can't really explain why it is the way it is. But yeah, so when we talk about the 7 tones in Taiwanese, 2 of them are this kind of short sounds.
So in those cases, if you have one of those 4 consonants in the end, they are there to create this short sound.
Yeah.
But you don't really pronounce them in full.
Yeah. For example, there's another word, gak. It's like a corner, gak. And it's spelled as K-A-K. So my tongue will stop at where I pronounce the K sound, but I don't say it, like gak. You can feel your tongue pushing up at the back.
I feel like this is something very close to Korean language.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? Because in Korean, at least with the sound K in the end, I know we don't say like the last name Park, for example. In English, we say Park. But in Korean, it's Pak rather than Park. Like Pak.
And your tongue is actually raising at the back when you say Pak. I can imagine. Yeah. That's why people are saying Taiwanese are quite similar to Korean.
Right. Because corner, the angle in Korean is also gak. Yeah. Did you bring anything else?
That's all. I hope it's interesting enough for the audience.
I think it's ideal when we mix conversation on the social background and historical background behind languages, but also have something for language nerds like myself. Thank you so much for that. Now, you did mention in the previous part of our interview that you grew up thinking that Taigi is rather a backward language. But then in one of your interviews, you wrote that now you think it's a fashionable, modern, and a cute language, and you hope that more people realize this. Now, why don't you teach us some of fashionable, cute, or modern words or phrases from Taigi that you think everyone should know?
Okay. One of the words I think of is 秀秀.
秀秀.
In Taiwan, we say it a lot. And when we say 秀秀, it's in a situation where we're comforting someone. For example, when you're crying, I just go to you and like kind of tap your head and say 秀秀, 秀秀, like don't cry.
Like the English, here, here.
Yeah, so it's used when you're comforting someone, and I think it sounds quite cute, and yeah, you can use it with your boyfriend or girlfriend.
Oh, 秀秀.
秀秀. It's spelled as S-I-O-H.
And then hyphenated twice.
Yeah.
It's very useful. I'm going to use it a lot. In English, yes.
There's another word that often goes with 秀秀 is 呼呼.
呼呼.
呼呼. But it's used in a situation where, for example, when a child fell and started crying, and maybe the mom would just go to him and say, hoo hoo, hoo hoo. It feels like when we say hoo hoo and we kind of blow some air where he gets hurt, it will feel less painful for the kid. That's what we think. So,
more comforting.
Yeah. And this word actually is used in daily conversation in Mandarin as well. So it's quite useful in both languages.
So mostly you use it for kids.
Yeah, well, we don't really say hoo hoo to adults.
Okay, I obviously have a natural question.
Yeah.
If I say this to an adult to sort of sarcastically point out that their suffering is not as important. I use that as in, should I call you an ambulance?
We don't really use it in that context.
Okay.
Most of the time, we're just really genuine.
Okay. We're nearing the end of our episode. I have to ask you, what is next in your plan for Taro Taiwanese Dictionary, but also for your work promoting Taiwanese?
Right now, what I'm working on my app, adding some games into the app, because I want people to have fun when they use my app. So I think adding some games that help them expand their vocabulary will be a fun thing to do. And second, because right now my app only supports iOS, so that means you can only use it on iPhones or iPads. There are a lot of people who use Android phones comment on my social media saying, oh, please release an Android version. Although I can't write any Android code, but I'll try my best to make it happen.
Because you were trained as an iOS developer, right?
Yeah.
So you would need either to learn how to create Android-based apps or hire a team, perhaps?
Yeah, if, like I said before, if I can really make this app into a business, then maybe it's a possible option.
Well, I wish you all the best with your work and especially with promoting Taro Taiwanese Dictionary. And I hope you manage to fulfill your plans.
Yeah, thank you very much.
To close this episode, how do we say in Taiwan we speak Taigi in Taigi?
Đi Taiwan vun công Taigi.
Okay, we have to say it together. 1, 2, 3.
Đi Taiwan vun công Taigi.
Yay! So that's it, dear listeners. We had the pleasure of chatting today with Lîm Sim-An, an app developer and the creator of Taro Taiwanese Dictionary. Thank you, Sim-An, for this very insightful chat.
Thank you.
And dear listeners, thank you for being with us. If you enjoyed our series about Taigi with Sim-An, then please give us some boosts on social media and don't forget to recommend this episode to your friends. And of course, do come back next week for another one of Taiwan's fascinating languages. Once again, this was In Taiwan We Speak. I am Oleg and see you next week.